So we're continuing to look at things in the golf swing under the caption true or false. Is something true or is it not true? And this is lesson 78 part 12, and we're going to look now upon a phrase called shaft plane. Now Ben Hogan, in his wonderful book The Modern Fundamentals of Golf, gave us a swing plane from the ball resting on the shoulders. So Simon, my producer and cameraman, he's going to show you the line from the ball resting on the shoulders, and that is the swing plane. Hogan knew something very subtle, because actually on the next page, page 79, he drew a line from the ball through the upper sternum. So Hogan knew that the swing plane didn't go from the ball to the top of the shoulders with the sheet of glass, it was a few inches lower. He got it absolutely right. So on Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, that is the hub of the wheel, not up here. It's across this line. So top of the breastbone, top of the sternum is what we're looking for. So now Simon's going to put in a red line from the ball through the shaft, almost into my sort of tummy button and out to infinity. That is the shaft plane. But the shaft plane, if I lived on that plane, I'd be swinging here, and I think you can see that is so far below the plane, we've got big problems. Sadly, lots of people, they don't use an explainer with a full swing hoop. They have these plane boards and they try to get people to swing on the plane board. Absolute disaster. That's like using an axe like this. You wouldn't do it. Okay, you'd use an axe or a baseball like this. This is the plane. The shaft plane's a disaster. You can't live on it. So, there's the shaft plane, as Simon's showing you with the red line. If I stay on that plane, I've got big problems. Let's go back, let's draw in a line from the ball through the upper sternum, and you can see the club head tracks on that line. What is patently obvious is that the butt of the club is in the shaft plane at address, but it rolls and rises to the plane. Let me show it sideways. So Simon, give me a plane line that follows the sweet spot. The line from the sweet spot to my stern, that's the plane. This bent spoke is not the plane. As I make the swing, the club rolls and the butt rises. It's vital to understand that if we swung on the shaft plane, we'd get this effect. Now my great sort of hero is Ian Poulter. And Ian Poulter used to waggle like this. He used to waggle the club down to the hands. In other words, he waggled like this. And then hit the odd shank from nowhere. And I did very subtly and very respectfully say to Ian one day that if he waggled where the butt rose, he wouldn't hit a shank. He's under the tutelage of Peter Cowan now, but I think if you look at Ian's waggle, he doesn't do this waggle anymore, because that created the shank. He now waggles, if he does waggle, with the butt rising. Duffner does it. Jason Duffner waggles upwards, because Duffner understands the butt of the club rises to the plane. Now again, we can't be too dogmatic on true or false, because there are areas where the shaft plane is quite important. Obviously at address, the wedge, 6-iron and driver, those shaft planes will have some impact upon the plane of the swing. But what I'm showing you is the butt of the club rises to the plane. If I go back and then hit your draw, the butt of the club rises as I impart draw earlier. If I go back in plane and hold off, the handle stays low and hit a fade. So if you took Nick Faldo in his pomp, he had the shaft in this plane at address. The shaft rose to the biomechanical plane but returned to shaft plane at impact. That's a fade mechanism. That's what Trevino did, and Trevino's swing had a huge impact upon the teachings of David Ledbetter. And it won Faldo in a short space of time 6 majors. Absolutely brilliant. 3 Opens and 3 US Masters. So this is Faldo in slow motion. Shaft in this plane here. He went to the top, but he returned to shaft plane and stood up through the ball. A mild Trevino-esque type movement. If I show you a picture of Tiger with a driver, he returns to the biomechanical plane from the sternum to the ball. So we're not saying true or false, wrong or right here, we're saying there is a spectrum. But what we must appreciate is, while we can have an understanding of shaft plane, it is definitely not the swing plane. So, is the shaft plane the swing plane, true or false? False. It's absolutely not the swing plane. Not to say that we don't have to understand its journey. And what we know is, with fade, impact, the shaft will be in the original plane at address, and with the draw it might rise. Neither are wrong, they're just different. But it's that cone of movement. It's like a cyclist riding a bicycle. There's a cone of acceptable balance. That's too much. A little wobble's okay. In the golf swing, the wobble lives between shaft plane and swing plane generally. Most golfers teach and live in that cone of movement. So we can't be too dogmatic. While we understand the shaft plane is actually a reference point, don't confuse it with the swing plane.